Slowly waiting. All right, here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. We are MCOY, and we are here today. We have some guests. Want to go ahead and introduce yourself, you guys?
Yeah, my name is Ashley. Okay. My name is Ashley. I guess like many of you am pretty frustrated with what's been going on in terms of, police brutality and just like the discrimination against Black people. And I hope people can get something very useful out of this conversation we have today.
Yeah, I'm Tobe. I was here last week as well, and I just figured I'd give whatever insight I could on the current situation. I grew up in Maryland, and I was actually going to school near Baltimore when stuff happened in 2015 with uprising. So I kind of saw it secondhand. So it's kind of interesting to see how this situation compares and everything.
I'm Jay, and it's a crazy world we live in. I don't know. I forgot who it was that said it, but I read somewhere a quote that, resonates right now. Racism isn't getting worse. It's just being recorded. This has probably been going on, but now with social media, we can see it and we can put a face to an action.
Yeah, I agree. I guess what were you guys' thoughts when you first saw the video? Or if you didn't see the video, what were your thoughts when you first saw the news?
Wait, James, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no. No, you're good. I am a guest.
I forgot about James.
I'm a guest. I'm a guest too. But I literally I'm also really angry about what happened and what's going on. So I wanted to sit in and see if what you would say to do to offer help. So I just want to sit in here. I'm really glad you guys are doing this, and it's a conversation that I really wanted to hear. And thanks, Ronald, for letting me sit in. So sorry, Ashley.
No, you're good.
Not a problem.
You're good. Sorry, I forgot about you. What were you guys' thoughts when you first saw the video or first heard the news about what happened to George Floyd?
How?
Jay, can you start?
Yeah, that was the first thought. The very first thought that I had was how? Who has such little compassion for another life that you can hear a man under you saying, "I can't breathe," and you just don't care? He didn't care at all. His knee was on his neck, and he gave zero. Can I curse? No. Okay. Well, he gave zero fucks, to be honest, and it's really messed up. And then the Asian guy was just letting it happen. And apparently there was more people behind the car. If the man is handcuffed and he's on the ground, why do you need 4 people? And if he's on the ground, handcuffed, he can't do anything. Why is your knee on his neck? That's not a protocol anywhere. Who taught this guy that? So it's the most what kind of human being does this? That's the only thing that was going through my head. What kind of person could just callously take a life like that? Yeah. He knew when he was dead. He felt them. He stopped moving.
Yeah, it was horrific because I remember seeing the video. And then even there was at one point, there was a guy who checked his pulse with his 2 fingers, and the guy didn't even get up off of his neck, even after they saw he was unconscious and that he was not breathing. So I don't see how anyone can really call it anything but murder. He knew the guy was unconscious. He knew the guy could not breathe, yet he still stood on his neck. And the thing that tells me that his goal probably was death was that even after the guy took his pulse, he stood on his neck. So, I feel like you, I don't know. if you can call it anything, but you know, he had malicious intentions to kill George Floyd. What's your thoughts, Toby?
Yeah, I was gonna actually say, like, it's one of the most unambiguous things like I've seen. Like, not to even excuse any of the other deaths that happened with Ahmaud or anyone else, but like you watching this of 10 minutes, it's so unambiguous that there's no other thing that you can do but literally put these people in jail for murder. Like you said, they were standing there on the neck. Very clearly, they were already unconscious. Like, I remember just like seeing the people who were recording. I mean, they were not happy at all. They were cursing. They were completely in the right to be enraged. And you're just like, there's so much helplessness because what can you really do when that's happening? And the fact that, I mean, Trump tweeted out saying that he put it, I mean, I don't know how true it was that he directed an investigation, but he himself tweeted that this was tragic. And like, I've seen like other conservatives, Trump people saying like this was completely uncalled for. So like there's like zero, like you're really a clown like if you're somehow defending this at all. And I haven't seen how much of it was a really quick turnaround from that video to them being fired, which that's like, I mean, that's some kind of amazing, like the fact that that even happened is like, okay, great. Now let's go all the way, you know, murder. I think someone suggested that you should go for manslaughter, but honestly, like, I feel like the case is strong enough that it's murder, and you know you have to really take a stand against this and have better practices. I mean, there's so much on the way of solutions, and it's a hard and very repetitive conversation. But I mean, I definitely have a few ideas, which you know I can kind of discuss a little later. But it's pretty clear cut, and I'm glad that at least that was seen very quickly that this was not okay. But we need to move faster. What it does kind of make me kind of just more upset was I remember seeing Amy Klobuchar's response and some other people where it's just like, it was a very vague, like, oh, these deaths happened, but there was no condemning of the officers. Literally, the comment that just came up, draft Tulsi. Yeah. And it was just like, wait, what? Like, it was not just like a random death. Oh, these, you know, this guy, George Floyd, just happened to die. No, he was murdered. And it was the officers. Like, I don't know. It was the most political language, wavy thing that I had seen. I was like, come on, like this is the Democrat side. Like, not that I had that much faith apparently in the Democrats after seeing things like that, but you think that they would be the one with the strong, forceful condemnation. Like, I could at least count on Kamala Harris or someone to really like go forth and like condemn. But I was like, what is this? Like, what? And is she going to be the VP? Is this really what's happening right now? Anyway, let someone else go.
I know when I first initially saw the video, I'm looking, I'm like, okay, his knee is on his neck. Like, what part, like Jay said, like what part of that is even acceptable, knowing that he's already handcuffed? And because of the fact that he says, I can't breathe, you know, it just speaks that the lack of humanity that was in that police officer in the first place. Because I don't think anybody in their right mind who on purpose, mind you, on purpose now, causes somebody else to not be able to breathe while they're restrained. I can't think of any logical person that would do such a thing, and yet it happened, you know. And on top of that, I actually kind of feel bad for the bystanders due to the fact, like, okay, you're recording. Their thought is, and I'm assuming this is what they're going through. Like, okay, if we try to intervene, what's going to happen to us? That we see this man, he's literally dying. What's not to say the same man that is squeezing the life out of this man's neck will turn around, swing out his pistol, and shoot everybody else that's there because we're interfering in one way, in shape or another. So it's like it hurts me to see that, and then to see the footage that had just been released prior when they were saying, oh, he was resisting arrest. It's like, no, he wasn't. You could tell he wasn't resisting arrest. Even though there's no audio in it, you could tell he was literally complying to what the officer was trying to say. What was going on with whatever was said, one thing led to another. Now here we are. We have a dead man who could have been saved had the right thing happen at the right time. So I think right now what's happening is a collective of people. They're sick and tired. Ultimately, they're sick and tired.
And think about what he was getting arrested for, like falsifying a check. What was he getting arrested for? It wasn't anything that warranted him dying, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and even less such a forceful arrest. All he was doing was asking, yo, like what am I being arrested for? And then they whisked him away. Like, how are we supposed to trust you? How are we supposed to trust them? How are we supposed to trust the people that are supposed to protect us when they're the number ones, like, killing us? It makes no sense. You ain't never hear nobody make a song saying fuck the fire department. like just don't, like, come on, you're supposed to be this neutral party that's supposed to protect both sides and keep the peace. How are you supposed to keep the peace when nobody wants to listen to you when you call for peace? Your word's not good. You can't call for peace and then be beating somebody up. Mm-hmm. You can't go to Battery Park and give people masks and then go to Harlem and beat them up because they're at a corner store. Like, this is what happens every day. Every day. I live in the hood, so I see this on a daily basis. The other day, these guys were shooting fireworks and shooting a gun at the same time. Cops are over there looking for the dude, Citizens App, whatever. This happens so often. And it's so, like, what we see are only the worst of the worst. So it's a much deeper problem.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. What are we gonna do about it? Let's talk. What are solutions? You know, because we got to think bigger. We got to become the bosses, and there's got to be ways to do that.
Yeah. I actually had a. Oh.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ash. Go ahead, Ash.
All right.
Yeah, Ashley.
I had a conversation with Erica earlier on the phone. We were just talking about ways we could go about this. And I mean, I admit, like, when I first saw the video, like, I was angry. You know, I don't know what about that video sparked anger in me, because, like, the past videos, it sadly, it's become a thing where, like, I see these videos and it's like nothing new, and it's become numb. I become numb to it. But, like, this video, I guess it was, you know, there were, like, so many people around just recording and, you know, yelling at the officers and all of that. And what was going through my mind was that what has happened that we have gotten so scared to defend our existence? Because, I mean, the natural human response is to defend your existence. I'm not for going and killing innocent people, or, you know, ruining small businesses that had nothing to do with this. But I understand the anger. But when I was having a conversation with Erica, she was like, let's talk about solutions. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. Let's talk about giving income to Black communities so that we can empower ourselves and so that we can have a seat at the table. And, you know, I'm still young, and she has a lot more life experience. I can be stubborn and, you know, be reactive and all of that. And so it definitely did give me perspective. And I hear from, like, a lot of older people, older Black people. They're like, we need to put money into our hands. We need economic power to have a seat at the table. We need to take leadership roles. And that doesn't always mean taking a seat in Congress. And so I'm curious to hear what you guys think we should do about not just, like, police brutality, but, like, just the discrimination and the disparities in our community.
You can't control what's in people's hearts, but you can control the flow of resources.
That's good.
What were you going to say, Ronald?
That's good. Well, because I know before I got on, there was a video I saw about a couple hours ago, and I had to play it twice. And reporter talking to a young black guy, and he was asking the question, like, same question that we're asking now. It's like, what needs to be changed? And be aside to this, the guy, again, very young, probably somewhere in his like late teens, early 20s, he said that there really isn't an end, because what's going on is going to keep on happening, because the police force, they have a mentality of what they're doing is okay. And until they change, then as a community, as a black community, and not just blacks, but we could say people of color too as well. We could say Latinos, we could say Asians, we could say Hispanics, like all people of color as a community, that unless the police force and the mentality that they take and how they deal with people, unless that changes, don't expect us to change, because we're going to fight back with pretty much the same force that you apply on us. Don't expect for us to go away quietly. Don't expect us to kind of just mope our heads and cry and boo-hoo and not do nothing. Like, no. The guy was saying, I'm sick and tired of seeing this. I'm sick and tired of seeing, lives being taken away prematurely when it doesn't have to be. When all it could have been was a simple, hey, what's going on? What were you doing? Blah, blah, blah. A simple conversation, all of this would have been avoided. But because police officers now, and let me just make this clear to everybody. I'm not saying every police officer is this way. Let's be very clear about this. Every police officer on the streets, no, they're not like that. There's the small pocket, the small few that think they can live above the badge that they're wearing. Those are the ones that we're addressing. Those are the ones that we're talking to, because 9 times out of 10, it's mainly them that gives the whole force a bad rep. Because I'm pretty sure there's some that's like, dude, you shouldn't have done that. You should have handled that totally different. Like, why would you rest your knee on that person's neck? Like, come on now.
Yeah.
I got a question.
I agree. Oh,
a question came in. Yeah. So, do you think having more minority officers would make a difference? Like, would that change the force if we had more minority police officers, more minority police chiefs? Would that change how they react? Like, would that change how they operate?
I don't really think so, man. Because there's examples of it happening on both sides, where you have minority police officers who, like, I remember in Baltimore with Freddie Gray, pretty much all those officers were minorities who like tackled Freddie Gray, broke his spine, and did it matter? No. But then on the other hand, I think there were some like police chiefs that have been good at like investigating, or like they've tried to create lists of certain officers who've been in like racist Facebook posts. I can't remember if it was Philly, but there was like one black like police chief or some really higher up who was trying to like weed out some of these bad officers. But like, I don't know if it's precisely just the skin color. Maybe it's like the community you come from. Like, are you from these communities, and can you speak to the needs, or like try to actually have the community policing and the engagement? Maybe that's what's kind of really important. But I don't fully know what it is that will lead to the good outcomes and like be able to weed out the bad apples. And I think I saw one question that said, if there are only a few bad apples, why aren't the good cops stopping the bad ones? And that's really the question.
Yeah, that's a good question. If there's 1,000 good cops and 10 bad cops, and the 1,000 don't do anything to stop the 10, like, are you really that good?
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna say after Ronald.
We on the same wavelength.
Yeah, because it's it's different than saying not all, just because like a black person does something bad, not all black people are bad, and then saying just because a police officer does one thing bad, not the whole police force is bad. The difference is the police force has sworn to protect us and is legally allowed to carry guns and use them. And so when our lives are at stake, no, it's not about, one police officer doesn't, represent the whole force. If you want to distance yourself from other police officers and show us that you are with us, then you should protest with us. Then you should join forces with us. Mm-hmm. Your silence as a police officer says that you condone this behavior. So you can't get mad when people see your uniform and already size you up.
So the the many concerning things I saw last night. One of the most concerning things is, I don't know if you guys saw the murderer's actual house. Did you see that?
Yes, I saw that.
They literally had 75 police officers just lined up in rows, like defending this guy's house while the city's like burning. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's my other concern, because, and then there was a poll on Twitter today that was like, what is more of an outlier? Like what's harder to find? Like one good cop or one bad cop? Like what's more rare? Like a good cop or a bad cop? And the overwhelming poll was like a good cop is more rare.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow, that's
like, and Heidi just put in the chat, like, I was told once by an assistant special agent that the statistic is actually 75% bad, 25% good. So I think we're at the point where statistically just like, okay, there's something wrong overall. And that's something like I really want to help solve, because it's bullshit. Because it should not be like that at all.
I want to know why that's so high. Like,
well,
is it like you have to be a specific type of person to want to be a police officer? Like,
true, I know,
because I don't want to be a cop.
Yeah,
but I have respect.
Well,
you get what I'm saying? Like, it's
yeah,
that's so high.
Yeah, I don't know why. Oh. Yeah, I don't know why.
I gotta
Okay. Oh God! All right, go Ronald. Go Ronald.
He's like half a second delayed.
We'll get better. It's okay.
No, he's a half a second delayed. That's all.
Right.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
See,
and again, I could kind of answer that in two folds, because one, when I was going to school for criminal justice, I don't know if anybody saw the last stream. I talked about my experience dealing with the criminal justice and how my professor at the time, he was a retired detective. And so he brought in a lot of experience, about a lot of inside experience about what actually happens in the police force. And he said, believe it or not, there's a thing called the blue code. Basically, what he said was this: once you become a police officer, you get taken in as one of their own. And so in a sense, it's like if they know that one of the officers has a drinking problem, rather than try to take them in and get them counseling, they'll try to protect them in the way. And so in that person's mind, they think that it's okay because I'm one of the brethren, or I'm one with the police officers. And so I think that stigmatism there, it has to be like, listen, if you know right is right is right, and wrong is wrong, why don't you call out the wrong? Because even it's going to continue to happen, it's going to continue to become a problem where it's going to be way bigger than what you anticipated to be. That's the first part. The second part, one of my good friends back in Colorado, me and him, we talked, and he said that he wants to be a police officer due to the fact that he saw the injustice that he faced with dealing with police officers, that he saw that the majority of them were doing were wrong. And he wanted to change that, change the stigmatism, and be like, no, not all police officers are bad. Like, not all police officers are jerks. Not all police officers are going to pull you over and write you a bad ticket because they're having a bad day or they can't meet their quota. He's like, no, I want to be one of those select few that's like, listen, if your house is on fire, I want to be there to protect you. If somebody's trying to break in, I want to be that officer to be there to protect you. Mind you, he served his time, but he was like, the time spent there, it changed his views on a lot of things. It changed him to become a better person. He understood that once he signed up to become a police officer, that his main job was to protect and serve the community and not the other way around. And because he took on that role, he felt more so connected to the community that he served, because that was his way of giving back. Even though, yes, he tried to go in the military, couldn't get in. He said, well, I'm going to go ahead and join the police force, got in there. And again, the experience there, it taught him a lot. And so, yes, to try to basically answer the question why there's so many bad cops and not enough good cops is just the simple fact that because of the kind of brotherhood that lies in there, it makes it hard to root it out, because a lot of it is internal. And with it being eternal, meaning that you have to literally open up the wound, dig out the bad stuff. It's going to hurt, yes, and get rid of it, and then allow that wound to heal properly from the inside out. Because if you don't, it's still going to cause a bigger infection than what it was to begin in the first place.
That's what Marianne was talking about. She was talking about healing the wounds of the past. That's a fact. I mean, but
it is.
One thing that I like really get upset about is the fact that there are always protests and riots and things like that, but there's never like a solid agenda with like a policy position or a bill that they want to like walk up to City Hall and give to them. We can't just walk around protesting and rioting without a call to action. We need like hey, this is what we want, you know, not like stop. Like we need to say this is what's changing, and this is what we're gonna do. Like you got it, and then present it, because like what are we doing at the end of the day? Nothing's gonna change. And so we need to teach our kids to start working for land and buildings and learning how to build something. We need to teach more financial literacy to these children and to the adults too, because everybody talks about we need to have smarter kids. But who the heck is going to teach the smarter kids if all the adults around them are dumb? It makes no sense. So we need financial literacy, and I'm not saying dumb in a bad way. I'm saying like some people don't know what a dividend is. Yeah, you should know what a dividend is if you're an adult. You know, like we need to educate our people, and that's just a very small part of the problem, because it's a vicious cycle. Shit is crazy.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that earlier. We can't just continue like fighting for nothing, because I mean, I feel like, you know, the riots are. I mean, I understand like the pain that people are going through, because you know, these incidents they're tragic, and we can't become numb to it, because the moment we become numb to it, the moment you know we accepted the fact that you know, we're subhuman, which we're not. We're human, and we deserve to be treated as human. But at the end of the day, we need something to aim for. Like what? Because, you know, during the civil rights marches, Martin Luther King, his goal was to end segregation. His goal was for Black people to have the same treatment or the same opportunities as white people. But he had a specific goal. It was integration. That's what he preached. Whether it worked or not is a different discussion. But right now, what you're seeing is just a bunch of people acting out of emotion and expressing their anger, which is what we need. But we also need a vision.
Yeah. Shout out to everyone in the chat, by the way.
Agreed.
We appreciate you.
Yes, you guys are awesome. Do not, before you guys leave, do not think that we don't see your comments. We do, because it's on point, dead on. And a lot of them we can't answer just as of right now, because by the time you post that in the chat, we already talk about it and is leading into it. So great comments. Keep it up. Well, I got a question for you guys. And I know, Ashley, you brought this up too, not too long ago. What are your thoughts as far as civilians, i.e. people of color, being able to carry firearms legally? What are your thoughts?
Oh, man.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Everybody get a strap.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody get a clip. Everybody. Let's go. Second Amendment.
I mean, the founding fathers, like when they created the Constitution, you know, the Second Amendment was to protect the First Amendment. You know, when our freedom of speech and our freedom, our human rights, our human rights are the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you know, when our life is at stake, as in like when George Floyd was under the police officer's knee, and he obviously could not breathe, and he was unconscious, and he died underneath that man's knee. Or when police officers shoot an unarmed man, it's like that's what the Second Amendment is for. I mean, whether, you know, it would become a very sad day in America when, you know, Black people, we all have to, you know, get armed and we're at war with the police and all of that. That's not what we want. What we want is to just be treated as human. But also, I can't, you know, be honest, and I can't sit and say, don't get armed and don't protect your life, because your life matters. And you are not subhuman. You are a human being, and you deserve to be treated as a human being. But what I just want us to direct our emotions, or direct the conversation onto, you know, what can we do as a collective whole, not just Black people, but, you know, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people. Like, what can we do to prevent something like that from happening? That's you know, preventing a war. Because in wars, innocent people always die. Innocent civilians always die. You know,
it's never the rich that fight the wars.
Yeah.
It's never the rich that fight the wars.
Very true.
Ever. You ever, like, there should be a rule that as president, if you're going to start a war, send one of your kids. Facts.
Or you get in the war yourself.
Like, facts.
Oh man.
Spicy.
Yeah,
that is a hot take. But I stand by it. It's true. Like,
no, yeah.
Why is it always the poor people that have to go to war? For who? We didn't start this war. Like, why? Like, why are they fighting for? I have beef with nobody. Why are you sending me over there? It makes no sense. Everybody should own a gun within the limits of the laws. Now we need to fix the laws, but the laws, it's not necessarily the access to guns. There are 300 million firearms out there. There's more guns than people. This is a fact. We're the most heavily armed society in history. It's like theoretically there should be way more deaths because there's a lot of guns out there. So it's not the guns. It's everything that leads up to it. Andrew Yang said, pulling the trigger, there's a chain of events that lead to that one action. The earlier you break the chain, the easier it is to solve the problem. So there's a whole process that leads up to someone having the balls to pull that trigger, because you got to have the balls to pull that trigger, even if it's on yourself or on someone else, because you know you're making a permanent decision, no matter if it's on impulse or anything. So there are links in that chain. We got to identify those links and start breaking them. We can't just say, oh, fix the access to guns and then think everything's going to disappear. There's so many of them on the streets. So it's right here.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I definitely agree. Like, there's even a group called Black Guns Matter that talks about, like, I mean, they're very strong in their opinions. I remember they say things like, you know, all gun control is racist. And there is a history, of course, with the NRA, with the Black Panthers in California. You know, people became very good fans of gun control when they saw Black people wielding. So I definitely think that kind of protection, that self-preservation is important. And I agree, Ashley, we definitely do not want to be at war. We don't want to be at the point where we have to, like, arm ourselves and, like, have our own, like, brigades against the police.
Yeah.
It's not even, like, a really one clear answer, but I do think being able to carry, knowing your rights, you know, kind of, you know, taking that power for yourself. I mean, we saw what happened with the LA riots. There were people on rooftops, like, I want to say the Korean stores, and they were like, we're going to, you know, have our show of force. I don't know you guys' thoughts on this one, but there were some people who were, you know, they said they stood with George Floyd in the protests, but not against the looters. And they had, like, the guns outside of, like, some convenience stores, basically saying we're going to be here as a show of force. And I thought that was interesting. Again, I don't want to actually see an armed confrontation between, like, looters and people trying to defend against looters, but I think just that kind of like
Karen wanted the smoke though.
You said they want the
Karen wanted the smoke though. She was out there in a wheelchair stabbing people.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
What? Like, what's going with you?
Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
Over here stabbing people in a wheelchair. You can walk. Like,
it's like she should be put on suicide watch. It's like she was asking to be killed.
Ellis, what would be something that you would implement, like that you believe would help with this whole, not necessarily the police system, but like the gun situation? Because there's a lot of guns out there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of links in the chain too. So what would your solution?
I mean, on this topic, I'd say anyone that wants to carry, like, get a gun, legally carry. Especially when you look at some of the protests at the state capitals of people carrying, like the police force against them versus the riots, like it just doesn't make sense. So if they're acting favorably to people that are carrying, fucking carry, you know. In terms of action, like legislation, I think now, like, you guys were dancing around it like pretty well. Like, why don't you draft up some kind of legislation, like saying, here, these are the riots, these are some of the demands. Like, like, everybody's super smart. Like, I think that's something that's very possible, especially if you look at it from like, okay, what would the legislation be though? I think, like, personally, I think the demilitarization of police is like super, super important right now, because they're just ramping up. Like, I don't know, like, I live in Victorville, California, which is always one of the top 5 most dangerous cities in California. And the militarization of police forces is insane. Like, straight up military trucks driving around. So I think we can like draft legislation, literally, like saying, hey, these are our asks. Take to Donald Trump and be like, hey, maybe instead of worrying about, you know, Twitter censoring your shit and making an executive order for that, why don't you focus on this over here? Because he'll say the political bullshit, but when it comes down to actually making executive orders, that's where you need to call his bullshit, because it's crazy that with everything going on, he's out here writing executive orders for social media. Like, it's fucking crazy. So I say you're spot on with, everything that's going on, and then also make an ask, right?
Yeah.
To kind of push in that direction.
That's the question, though. What is going to be in the ask? You know, I think all cops should have like a month or 2 months in a hardcore MMA gym. Yeah. Just get humbled. Feed them to the lions, all of them, and then see if they can develop that martial arts like reverence for life. Because when you actually participate in a martial art, you start to realize you shouldn't be fighting everybody, like, because you don't know what people are capable of. Feel me? Like, you could be the best boxer on the freaking planet. You run into a dude that could wrestle, it's over. You could be the best wrestler on the planet. You run into a guy that knows jiu-jitsu and you go right into that choke, it's done. So these cops, and I think this is one of Yang's policies. Like, every cop should be a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, minimum. That guy wouldn't have needed to put his knee on his neck if he was confident that he could control his body with his hands. I mean, I don't know, because he might have just been some racist asshole that wanted to kill him.
No, literally that murder. Yeah, the guy that had his knee on his neck, he's connected with like 3 other deaths. Yeah. Like, that happened on, like, if you look into that shit, like, he actually has like a history, and that's why people are bringing up Amy Klobuchar, because she actually is in the Minnesota legislation that refused to charge them before, like, even before this. It's fucking bullshit.
Wow. Yes. How does that happen?
Just think it's gonna get swept under the rug. I don't really, you know, and up to this point it was swept under the rug. Now it's like, oh, you tried covering this up. Cool. Like, that's when,
like, you can't even have a police senators. You can't even take these like senators and congressmen seriously, because I mean, Amy Klobuchar, she locked the black boy up for life. when they couldn't even find the weapon that he supposedly used to kill like an 8-year-old girl or some young girl. And she bragged about this on a debate stage, saying that she brought, punishment to crime, or what do they call it? She's tough on crime.
She's tough on crime.
And it's this attitude that, it's like, this is what we need to stray away from. And we also need to ask, where did this come from? Why is this praised? Like, why are these congressmen and senators so far removed from issues in America that they would get on stage and brag about being tough on crime?
Well,
Harris, Amy Klobuchar, like, what is that?
The other issue is they're appealing to voters. So if more young people actually voted, I'm not giving her an excuse because it's complete bullshit, but I'm just saying it would help more the more young people voted, because these people would have to appeal to younger people, not just the older generations that actually vote.
But young people don't vote because they don't see a change.
Right. No, I completely agree.
It's like this crazy cycle. Young people do not care to vote because they've seen our grandparents, our parents, our great-grandparents all vote and nothing changed. So, but then also a lot of young people don't understand what you're voting for. Right. They don't want to put anything out there that'll say, I would vote for that. And I think that's why Andrew Yang woke a lot of young people up. This dude said $1,000 a month. I'll vote for that shit. I'm getting out there. He said, we're going to change the incentives. Oh my God. That blew my mind. Change such a simple idea.
Agreed.
Apply to government.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Game changer. Oh my God. And yet, look, nothing has changed.
Well,
we're at 45 years.
I'm looking at.
Go ahead.
What do you guys think would be the most? What do you guys think? Like the policy? What policy do we need to stress the most to address this problem? I'm sure there are like multiple policies, but which one do you think should take priority?
What was it?
Which policy do you think we should put the most priority on to like improving the discriminatory practices against African Americans?
Money.
Like whether it's police brutality or just, income inequality, like which one do you think is the most important?
Money.
Yeah.
Money. Straight up. Money. Money is power. That's what it is.
I would say that's true. I would say just to add on to that, to get the corporate money out. Get corporate money out, get black money out, and pretty much put in democracy dollars. I would think that would be a total game changer, because now in order for you to run on any kind of platform, you will literally have to go to that community that you serve to earn your spot on that ballot. And once you earn your spot on that ballot, that you have to make do on those very same promises that you put forth. Yeah. Because it's one thing to give people money, it equals power. I get that. But it's to put somebody in position of power to be able to give back to the very same community that they're trying to serve, because now it shows that they're not just in it for the money. No, they're in it for the longevity of that community that they're serving. They're in it for the right reasons for that community. They're in it because they believe that they can change what's going on and get these other people out. I know somebody in the chat was saying that, what about the senators in the House and the representatives? I'm like, yeah, they need to get term limits just as much as anybody else, and they need to get out as well, because all this old ideology that they're spewing out, it's not working. It has not been working, and it will not continue to work unless they get fresh ideas. And I'm pretty sure everybody can agree that's watching this will say that Andrew Yang, out of any of the presidential candidates, Andrew Yang was probably the only one that brought up real solutions, real policies that affected people in real time. It could not wait. And it will not wait, regardless of what the circumstance might be. And I think that America shot themselves in the foot, because they actually had a chance, somebody actually bring in real change, real success in a real amount of time before any of this mess would have got blown up in the first place. So America, shame on you, shame on you. And for those of us that was riding on the gang, love you, love you, love you.
Let's be honest though.
Yeah.
These old people in government, that's like your grandparents trying to explain a PS5 to you. They don't know what they talking about. The world has changed. It's not the same.
They don't want that smoke.
There's a big disconnect, you know? Like that's like somebody that was nice at like Street Fighter 1 trying to teach someone that's good at Street Fighter 5 how to play Street Fighter 5, but they don't even know the mechanics. It's like they don't even get the whole data is oil thing. They don't get it.
Even do that.
Yeah,
so this we gotta change this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the democracy dollars definitely
thing.
was an important point. What happened?
Oh, hold on. I'm about to show you this comment. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that?
Appropriate black representation in Congress.
Thank you for the comment.
Well, what's appropriate and by who? And like,
I mean, if you're just talking about black representation in general, I mean, I honestly don't think it matters because I mean, we have black representation in Congress, and you know, we have Kamala Harris, and we have Cory Booker and Maxine Waters, and Sheila Jackson Lee, and
even Bernie to some degree.
Representation in Congress. But the problem is they don't really put out effective policy that can I guess help the black community.
They don't have the solutions. They ain't got the answers.
Okay.
You mean wait? Does he mean like community representatives going to Congress? Like, is that what he means?
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Or pretty much, I'm thinking what he could correct me if I'm wrong. But what I'm thinking is like the actual black people that are actively involved in politics that they run, and instead of somebody else who's clearly outside of their community trying or quote unquote serving that community. I think that's what he's asking. And it pretty much goes back to what we were talking about before, that there needs to be proper education in order for them to be able to do so. Because I'm pretty sure there's probably some really smart young senators, young representatives that are black. Okay, good. That are black that have the capacity to do everything that we're talking about and bring about real change. And again, and it also goes back to what Jay is saying too as well. In order for them to be able to run, they're going to need some money in their pockets. In order for them to run with money in their pockets, again, going back to what Jay was saying, the community that they're coming out of, that community needs money in their pockets as well. And so forth. As Jay was saying, there's always a chain in the link, a link in the chain. That's where we need to go to be able to put money directly into those very same communities that they're trying to serve, so that yes, those communities can have the rights that they need, and so that when they send those representatives off to Congress, off to the Senate, that they have people in place that are willing to stand up to say, hey, that bill that you're trying to pass, how is that going to help my community that I'm serving? How is that going to help provide the infrastructure that my community needs? How is that going to help provide roads and sidewalks that need to be repaved? How is that going to help me out in the long run? How is it going to help my community out in the long run? How is that going to establish wealth in that community? Because what you're passing is BS. I don't want no parts of it. And I'm thinking that once we get enough people that are on that same wavelength to get into Congress to be able to change some things, it is going to have a lasting effect in ramp.
Not only that, but like when I said the money thing, I was thinking more of like the biggest cause, and I don't give a fuck what number you show me. The biggest cause for crime are crimes of desperation. people only commit crimes when they have to, when they're too poor and they need to go and steal, when they're too poor and they have to, you know, stick somebody up, when they're too poor so they get addicted to something because they want to escape the reality that they're poor. So UBI cuts all that out, all of it. It cuts all of it out. It cuts all of it out. Oh, you hungry? You got at least $12,000 a year to feed yourself, minimum. Oh, rent. Your landlord's harassing you. How many adults are in your house? 3. Y'all got $3 grand. Y'all can move out. Now you have leverage. So what? Like, it is the most powerful thing we could do, because I know so many mothers that want to do things for their kids, but they can't, because they can't afford it, because they got to work 2-3 jobs to keep them in a good school, and that's the most that they could do. But no, they want to put them in ballet. They want to send one of their kids to workshop or something else. They want to send them to science camp, but they can't, because it's too expensive. And then 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So UBI is such a strong mechanism. Oh, somebody brought up a child dividend.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about welfare, man. I don't like that word, because it's like these systems that are supposed to be helping us, that are means tested, are bullshit. I've been living in this neighborhood for 16 years. 16 years. And my family has been on EBT. I've seen so many people on EBT, Section 8, all these things. Nothing has changed. I've been here 16 years. Nothing has changed. It is the exact same, maybe even worse in some occasions. And it's because they're not incentivized to go out and make more money. Because if they make more money, it gets taken away. And if it gets taken away, that little bit extra that you're making is now a hole. Now you're in debt. So now you got to go back. But you can't go back because you're making a little bit too much money. So now you got to stop making that little bit extra money and go back to getting a $400 food stamp because you have to pay for groceries. This is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous choice that we're putting people through. And we pay taxes for what?
Yeah. UBI incentivizes the kind of the work you want to do, the mentoring, the coaching. Like outside of like, you know, the corporate kind of stuff, like you get to like really put your mind to things that are wholesome for the community, things that, like Yang says, are valued at 0 or near 0. I'm really glad he emphasized that a lot more, like in the later parts of the campaign, because there is so much like on the local level that would help build communities that people don't have time to do because they don't really pay you anything. But that kind of nurturing, mentoring, being in people's lives, that's really what you need to build a lot of these strong communities. And UBI, of course, gives you that floor and the security. Like you said, get some adults together, get in the place where you can live. I mean, the Stockton trials have actually been showing pretty good recently, like highlighting some stories where people were able to get out of certain neighborhoods, get to like a nicer place. I know, Ashley, you've talked a lot about like how the physical environment affects your mental health. Yeah. So like they talked about like having trees in your backyard and fruit that you can pick, and just a lot of that makes a difference. And if you don't see that, like you just it basically just weighs down on you. You have the cracked streets, sidewalks, the cracked houses, the boarded up places. I remember in Baltimore recently, it was so much stuff happening. But with Elijah Cummings, and there was like all this protest and stuff happening last year, they were showing how Baltimore, like there were trees growing out of some of the houses, and it was just a lot of trash and a lot of other things that unfortunately do build up in some of these communities. I don't know if it's the representatives, the mayor, or who, but there definitely needs to be sort of empowerment to the citizens, take care of the place, you know, make it better, beautify it without gentrifying. That's a whole nother conversation. Kind of like buying back the block and the property. There's a lot of stuff, and UBI definitely goes to the heart of a lot of that, to how to like make these places better from the ground up and just improve community. I know it's like tangential to kind of the police stuff, but it really does start like early on in the chain, like you said.
UBI, you get 100 of your boys, start a real estate company and start buying back your block. It's 100 grand between all of you. Come on, man.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Many ideas.
Crazy.
Many ideas.
When they say money is power, they're not wrong. You know.
But money isn't just power. Money is options.
Yes.
It gives you choices that you never had before. Yes. When you get money, you're like, oh my God, I can do things now.
Yeah.
So imagine all those people that want to do things. but they can't because they don't have the money. Now they can do things.
Yeah.
If you don't make it, if you don't make things, things aren't made. There's no things.
Yeah. And then like when you look at, you know, the mental health and like in America and like how it's, you know, constantly declining.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching a video. It was like a couple of days ago. There was this man talking about the mental health and like society's role in that. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that there is depression that's like a chemical imbalance, but you have to think about there is some depression and anxiety, you know, when people can't pay their bills, when people have to, you know, look both ways before, you know, they cross the street because, you know, a police officer may be waiting on them on the other side. Like in other countries, like, you know, especially in Scandinavia, their quality of life is high. They have a pretty good welfare system. Like how we think of welfare in the United States is not how they think of it there. How we think of it here is just like a cultural problem and a systemic problem. But they actually have a really good welfare program, and poverty is pretty much non-existent there. And when a fellow New Zealander or Kiwi, I think that's what they call them, when a fellow Kiwi is down and is poor, they have resources to get back up. Like in other countries right now, like during this pandemic, they're giving a UBI right now. They're paying people to stay at home. And this relieves that anxiety. I heard actually that the suicide hotlines have received like an 800% increase in phone calls. It's tragic. You know, while the COVID-19 crisis exists, you know, there's a mental health crisis. There was a mental health crisis before the pandemic, but, you know, there's definitely a crisis now. And, you know, as you guys said, like money is power. Money gives people options. Right now, like people are going through so much. I mean, there's no out for young people. It feels like we're trapped. You know, damned if we go to college and end up in debt, damned if we don't, because it's hard to find a job. I mean, yeah, there is trade school, and I feel like we definitely need to be stressing trade school a lot more instead of saying everyone go to college. But there's just like this systemic problem, you know, that's causing a lot of unrest in this country. And people that unrest, stuff like, you know, crime and yes, even, you know, racism. I know that may be controversial, but like I know like when Yang got on the debate stage at one point, he was talking about like white supremacists and all of that. You know, I think all people are going through a crisis. You know, even before the pandemic, like people are in debt. They can't afford bills. They're having to work 2-3 jobs just to get by. And, you know, there's a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. And with people in the scarcity mindset, you get their worst selves. And so that's why I think UBI is very powerful. I'm definitely not excusing racism. I'm just saying that we need to lift the emotional turmoil off of all Americans so we can see the humanity in all of us. Because, you know, right now people are suffering.
Yeah. I mean, think about like being a college educated does not, like, if you're Black or Hispanic or any P-tall, as I like to call it, person that's not white, that ain't white, P-tall. I'm testing it out. If like being a college grad isn't going to help that, because look at Amy Cooper, the guy that the bird watcher that she called the cops on, Harvard educated dude, bird watcher. You really think a bird watcher is gonna, like, no, you know, he's probably a badass, but you really think a bird watcher wants to take your life? Like, no, he cares about the planet. Come on. And then she tried to weaponize her race. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, all right, you guys.
A question.
Final thoughts before we.
Would you guys like to take questions?
I mean, the chat, they've been asking a bunch of questions. Open up for questions from the chat. I know one guy, we're going to get this started off, and then the one is, what is the greater economy?
Oh, man.
Steven,
take that one, and then probably be the last one for tonight.
It's my little brother.
Is it your little brother?
Yeah, it looks like someone had asked if you take the money out of from the greater economy, which none of the winners created. So then he asked, what is the greater economy?
A greater economy is where we can all prosper. It's where everyone is on the same starting line. Like, a lot of people got a 400-year head start. Just saying.
Yeah. No, I agree. A greater economy is when everyone has the opportunity to prosper. Right now, not everyone has the opportunity to prosper, and that's what we need.
We just need these companies that's siphoning our data, basically milking us for profits to give us our money back. Like, we need a data check. That's what we need. That's how we pay for UBI. And then UBI starts this great rebuilding process. Like, imagine all of the businesses. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah. The money going back into the economy, like
instantly. People are broke. They don't spend that shit.
The 50s and the 60s, people were paying more taxes. Corporations and rich, the billionaires started lobbying to get less taxes paid. I mean, how do we get the roads built? What did Eisenhower do? What happened back then? Like, right now, the income gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The money is being hoarded, and you don't have the opportunity to invest, infrastructure and all these other things. So, like, that's kind of the greater economy, which is why the value-added tax, people want to have their objections, but, like, that is one of the most efficient systems. Why are other countries using this? Because it works. And for the 21st century, you can use value-added tax to transaction, to tax, like, data, being, like, sold and resold. Like, you literally have Google and other companies that have value-added tax, and you can look at in other countries how it's done, and you just use the same mechanism. So that's really how you get that money from the greater economy is, we're living in it. We're living in the data where we see these companies just prospering. And even now, like, with things so uncertain, so many companies have just shot up. And it's like, someone said the stock market is just billionaires' feelings about how the economy is. And that's it. They just keep getting rich. And it's just like, well, even some of the millionaires are starting to plummet. And then the people way at the top just keep going. So, like, how's that affecting us,
What are your thoughts, Ronald?
Right. Well, my thoughts is basically on the same lines with everybody else. It is true that a greater economy is where everybody starts off like at the same time and have the opportunities presented to them across the board. So that way, person can say, I didn't have this opportunity, that's why I didn't take it. No, you have the same opportunities. You could have taken it if you could have taken it. And I also believe that making sure that has the accessibility to capital to be able to do what they want to do and not feel trapped because of A, B, C, and D. I think it'll be a starting point to think about this greater economy because, again, we have smart people. Andrew Yang wrote a book, Smart People Should Invent Things. Smart people should build things. And that's so true. But at the same time, they can't do it because they don't have access to capital because they don't have the same opportunities as the next person does. So I strongly believe that everybody should start at the same starting line, should be able to have the same opportunities and have the same access to capital. And let's see what happens and allow humans to have it in their hands and do what they want to do to their lives.
But
that's also my 2 cents.
Let's also not get it twisted. Not everybody is going to become the next Jeff Bezos. Not everybody is going to be a billionaire, even if we equal out all the resources. The greater economy, in my view, the best America that we can have is if everyone can live a life that they feel is fulfilling. whatever that is. If you want to be a farmer and you just need the money to be able to go and buy your produce, even if you're not making too big of a profit, but that's your passion, that's what you really want to do, and you're providing something to society, then go for it. If you want to be a carpenter or anything, any ambitions that someone has, big and small, a greater economy would allow everyone to be able to go out and chase those ambitions, and then the best of the best will rise to the top.
Agreed.
And the market will do what it does. But as long as people feel fulfilled and they're happy, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, no,
that's true. Yeah, that is true. Progressivism.
Yeah, you can't expect
progressive is progress.
Can't expect everyone to be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. I mean, what matters is that people are fulfilled and
man's a trillionaire.
Yeah, that they're happy. What are your thoughts, James, on our conversation today, on like the whole discussion?
No, it's good. I mean, I wish more people knew about UBI and how it's possible, and that there's actually solutions to a lot of the things like people are dealing with. So again, thank you for all you guys do, especially like having these conversations, because the more of these conversations you have, the more people are exposed to it, and more people will know like, hey, there's actually solutions that can happen. Because I mean, before I found NGA and UBI, like I was just like, fuck this system. Like there's nothing working for people, especially younger people. And then I found out, about UBI and everything. There's actually like a path forward, which is crazy. So I'm glad. I mean, there's people like you having these conversations, especially because like that's how things get done. Now, the challenge is what we were talking about earlier is that everybody in power are the older generations. And we've had these conversations before, like in previous times, the older generations pass the torch to the next generations, pass the torch. For whatever reason, that's not happening nowadays. And someone literally told me like the older generations right now aren't going to pass the torch. Like you have to take the torch. Like that's where we are right now. So
pass the torch.
That's like exactly what you're talking about. I mean, they're interviewing Facebook, trying to see what they're doing wrong. Like they don't even understand the technology. Like they don't a lot of the challenges we're running into, like they don't even know how to comprehend it. So to have them in power right now is ignorant. Like it's so bad. So again, thank you guys for having these conversations. Like again, I wanted to make sure to just sit in like for the most part. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm excited to see what we can do.
All right. We had a great discussion. To all of our viewers, I hope you tune in next time. We have these discussions every week on Humanity Forward's channel at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Thursdays. So tune in and then go subscribe to MCOY's new YouTube channel. It's Melanated Council of Young on YouTube. And then we have a Twitter account.
Yes.
It's MCOY ORG, MCOY.org. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you next week.
Yes, thank you.
All right, bye. Thanks.
America.
Okay.
We're still live.
And we live.
It's taking this sweet little time.
Just keep your hands up. You're
It's taking this sweet time.
America. Y'all know the rest.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Oh, lovely.
All right.